Well, a big draw for me, podcasting with you, is just getting to listen to the way you speak. I don't know another human being who speaks like you, because you speak the way I write for The Guardian, in full paragraphs. It's like you're always speaking in what sounds to me like a fourth draft.
Well, that is probably so. It is hereditary. I have inherited my speaking style from my dad. Now, there's nothing to be done about the situation. Some people will deprecate it in the most astringent terms, and other people will say, well done. The only point I make in my own self-defence is that it is not an artifice or a contrivance. It's just the way I am. I can't do anything about it. I am beyond redemption. I have always spoken like this. It is worthy of note that when I was at primary school, we went on a visit to the New Forest, and I can't remember why, but the teaching team included a supply teacher who was not to remain at the school for very long, and who, in evident frustration with me burbling away, said to me, "Bercow, you are a walking dictionary." This was not intended, Deborah, I must emphasise. As I remember once at secondary school when the head teacher summoned me, most inappropriately, I thought, because he was irritated by something that my dad had said and asked me to report to the school. And the head teacher said to me in 1980, "Bercow, I should tell you that if your father persists in complaining about this matter, I will make a fool of him. With great respect, the notion that in any confrontation between you and my father, it is my father who will be made to look a fool is completely incongruous." I think I did always have a sense of justice. It sometimes was wrongly misdirected, but I did always have a basic sense of justice. And I remember once
This episode, we're going to be talking about statutory instruments. Statutory instruments. Now, most of these episodes, John, I've at least heard of and are familiar with the terms. Even if I don't really understand them, and that's the point of the show, I'm saying, okay, we hear this term private members bill bandied around. I've got a vague idea what it is, but I need to know more. But in the case of statutory instruments, it sounds a little bit like something that, might be in an operating theatre. What is a statutory instrument?
A statutory instrument is a form of legislation which derives from and owes its origin to a piece of primary legislation. So, the primary legislation might be the National Health Service Reform Act, and a statutory instrument is something introduced by a government to give effect to a provision of the Parent Act. Now, why is there a need for that statutory instrument? Short answer is it's usually to do with detailed provisions. In other words, Deborah, an Act of Parliament, a piece of primary legislation that changes the law in relation to a field of policy, cannot include absolutely everything that is to flow from that act, because some of it is just too detailed to include on the face of the bill. So the government will often say, regulations will be brought forward to give effect to this policy purpose, produced at a later date.